Welcome back, everybody, to the Higher Ground Project. This is the podcast that shines a light on job seekers in today's tough and often thankless market. I am David Peterson.
And I'm Doug Kimball. And if the job market out there is starting to feel like a full-time with no paycheck, no vacation, no PTO, no nothing fun, you're not imagining it.
So if you've been following this podcast, you know that every week we sit down with professionals who are in the trenches. They're navigating layoffs, they're getting ghosted, they're on an endless round of interviews, and we talk through what they've learned and what they're up against and what keeps them going.
And this is more than just about finding a job. It's also about kind of finding your voice, making sure you own that, and reminding the world what it is that you bring to the table.
And before we dive in, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Think Strategic Alliances. This company is doing the real work of elevating fractional marketing leaders by showcasing them on their portfolio page and connecting them with companies in need of exceptional talent.
And today's guest is a healthcare technology marketing professional, a storyteller, and someone who really tries to capture the emotional weight of job searching better than just about anybody else. So please welcome Ned James.
So Ned is a product marketing leader with deep expertise in healthcare technology. So if you're a healthcare company, look at Ned. He's someone who knows how to translate technical solutions into real human impact.
And of course, I love product marketing since that's me, but his superpower is storytelling. So Ned uses compelling, emotionally grounded stories and narratives to turn complex products into powerful messages that really land with customers and resonate to drive results.
And just like so many of us, he's also in the thick of a job search right now. And unfortunately, this has been one that's been less of a sprint and more of a marathon. And he's here today on the podcast to share what the process has taught him and hopefully it helps others.
Cool. And Ned, welcome to the Higher Ground Project.
Thanks, guys. I'm really honored to be here.
So, Ned, for the first category, we kick off with a section called Clear the Pipes. Now, this is really your chance to be totally honest about your job search so far, what's been working, what hasn't been working. So, Ned, what has been the biggest challenge of your job search so far?
Really just the time it takes, the sheer volume of time. I've always said that looking for a job is a job in itself. And the last time I really actively looked for a job was in 2020 or 2019. But looking for a job has changed so much since then. I've got to scour the job boards. I got to do the resume. I got to build the brand online. It's just an endless number of tasks. And it seems like sometimes, I really need like 32 hours in a day. But and obviously I don't have that. But it's just not. It's the time, and I've got other commitments. I've got, a family life I've got or committed to. But it's just the sheer amount of time, because what I'm doing is just not replying to job postings. I'm really trying to create a brand presence online through postings on LinkedIn. I'm taking my marketing skill sets and really applying them to the job search. And part of that marketing skill sets is building your brand online and not just posting. And all of that takes an enormous amount of time. And it's just, that's what's really changed. And that's one of the biggest hurdles, is just not having enough time to do what is really necessary to not only, search for a job, but quite frankly, to build your brand online as well.
Yeah, it's so true. People, and when they start this process, they're coming back into it after being out for a while. They underestimate the amount of the emotional and the logistical weight of just showing up and being there every day for the job search.
They really do, and it's just does take an emotional toll. It's just you gotta keep at it and keep on and keep on. I'm kind of reminded of a couple of U2 songs. I'm a big U2 fan. One is I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I think that could apply to a number of job search. And then the other one, I think it's off the same album. If I'm dating myself by saying album, I think it's off the same CD, whatever. But I'm stuck in a moment that I can't get out of. And I think that line, they have a line at the end of the song about, and it's just a moment. This time will pass. I think that's so kind of positive, and I think job seekers have got to remember that you might be stuck in a moment right here, but it is just a moment, and this time shall pass too.
It is. That's a great mantra. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people who are watching this right now. And Ned, you're so active on LinkedIn. And I read one of your posts yesterday and it was so great and thoughtful. And one of the things that you touched on here that I really try to stress to people who are going through the job search is even though LinkedIn can feel a little abrasive sometimes or a little overwhelming, it is so important to have a presence on there because when you're fighting with
Yeah.
thousands of other people to get a job, people want to know that you're a human being and they want to know more about
Yeah.
you than just what's on your application. And now they can go to your LinkedIn page and see some really, really great content that will help sort of color out who you are as an applicant. And so I think stressing the importance of building that brand is so important for job seekers because it's not just submitting the application and calling it a day. You need to be a fully realized professional online so people can check that out before they start talking to you.
And that's a really good point because yesterday I had an interview early in the morning with somebody in London, and so we were kind of chit chatting before the real questions started. And she said she had gone on my profile right before the interview to take a look at it. She said, "Oh, I see you're a storyteller," and she had storyteller in her LinkedIn profile as well. So to your point is you really need to build your brand via LinkedIn, and because people will look at it. And the other thing I say too, I think not enough job seekers really differentiate themselves from one another. So a project manager is a project manager is a project manager, and one way to differentiate yourself is to build the brand and to do that via the postings on LinkedIn. And when I say postings, I'm talking about more of I come from this from a marketing perspective, okay? More of a thought leader. So not griping sessions about your job search or LinkedIn, but useful, thoughtful information that can help the audience. That's what I do in healthcare technology. Is they have long sales cycles, maybe a year or more. So the idea there is to create an emotional connection with the reader by conveying useful and thoughtful information. Same thing applies for job seekers as well. It's useful as a job seeker. What you want to do is convey thoughtful and useful information that resonates with the audience and is helpful to your audience, and they don't necessarily want to hear you ranting or raving about LinkedIn or anything like that. And so I think by posting thoughtful, relevant content that your audience likes and appreciates, that's how you differentiate. That's one way to differentiate yourself from all the thousands of other job seekers out there.
So let's keep that going. So you talked about being a storyteller, and storytelling on LinkedIn is important. But let's flip that around to look at it, Ned, the superpower of yours. You've mentioned storytelling, so I'm going to assume that is one of those. Talk a little bit about that from a product marketing perspective about how you tell those stories.
Yeah. I've worked in several B2B SaaS environments, healthcare, fintech, logistics, county and local government software, and I think what the tendency to do is to talk and tech talk when selling those products, and to really lean in on the features and functions. I think that's the default action, and doesn't really resonate because it really doesn't differentiate your product not only from your competition. But if all these other SaaS solutions are leaning in on features and functions, seamless workflows, reporting, it doesn't really resonate with the audience. What I have found is telling stories about the product that really resonate with the audience, that speak in their language that they can understand. So, not to get too deep in the products I market now, but the products, the technology solutions I do now help hospitals manage their supplies more efficiently. And supplies are the second largest expense component for a hospital, labor being number one. And so one of the things I do, one of the ways I market it is tell stories. So one of the pain points of hospitals, particularly in the procedural areas like the OR or the cath lab, is expired products. Obviously, you don't use an expired product on a patient. That's what they call healthcare a never event, okay? And so if a product does go expiring, you have to throw it away. The hospital has to throw it away, okay? So that's a particular pain point for clinicians in the procedural areas. Say they are. So what they have to do right now is they have to periodically eyeball the expiration date and pull the products that are expiring so they can use it. It's a real pain in the butt. Clinicians don't like to do that, okay? What they like to do is care for patients. So the way the story is, so that's the pain point is the clinicians don't like the eyeball product defining the expiration date, and the hospitals are wasting money because they have to throw expired products away. So we've got a solution that alerts clinicians to expiring products at a cadence they set. Okay, so you got the pain point, you got the solution, which is again, it alerts the clinicians to products that are expiring, say 30 days. They pull the product, they either use it or they can give it to another department, say another cath lab at another hospital to use it. And then you talk about the results, and the results are being like one hospital saved $750 thousand because they were able to use product before it expired. And so you look at your audience. My audience right now, is clinicians, is not technology folks or anything like that, and put the product at the center of the story. Talk about the pain point, talk about the solution, and then talk about the results. And then I try and for a job seeker too, that's the way you tell stories when you're being interviewed as well. I wouldn't recite necessarily, I don't recommend reciting the resume. What the interviewer wants is stories, and the story consists of a problem, a solution, and the results.
And Ned, I think you've touched on something really important here, which is the power of layman's terms. Even within an industry like healthcare, healthcare has its own language, right?
Yes.
And even people within the healthcare industry, and correct me if I'm wrong, they still get caught up in sort of the web of healthcare, right? So
Yeah.
anytime you can simplify something for them and just tell them exactly how it is, and to your point, in a way that resonates with them, in a way that they can understand, even if it's a physician who's been to medical school and has been practicing for a while, I'm sure that they even like getting marketing materials or communication materials in simple terms that they can just read and be like, oh, that makes sense to me. I understand the power and the impact of this service. That's all I need to know. So I really want to stress here that no matter what industry you're in, making sure to come to the table with clear and concise and layman's terms communications is really just an incredibly powerful asset.
And I see that
It
in
is.
healthcare tech because I work with a healthcare company now, and they struggle to communicate and connect at that human level, because if you're in healthcare, ultimately your focus, to your point, is on the people, at the patient at the very end of that whole process. And we can get caught up into your point, Ned, about talking all the technology and all the details, but ultimately it's about what is the problem and who we're solving it for. That's what makes you different in your storytelling, is focusing on that end result.
It's so true. And then let me flip it back to job seeking too. I think in the simple language too. I think as a job seeker, I really try not to get caught up in all of the technical terms. Obviously, well, I mean, I'm speaking to people outside of healthcare, but using my stories of healthcare. So they might not understand all the intricacies of an OR or a cath lab or the other areas we sell into. So what I really try to do during the interview process is when I tell these stories, make sure I use layman's terms, the language is simple, and so that the interviewer can understand it, and I don't have to spend 10 minutes setting up the story. So David, it's really relevant in product marketing, but it's equally relevant in interviewing as well.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a great conversation that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, especially people in comms and marketing who understand this firsthand, right? So let's keep the job search talk going.
Yeah.
Ned, if you could give or ask for one piece of advice to help job seekers like yourself, what would it be?
Yeah, just take some time to yourself. I know it's stressful to a lot of people. Okay. And, I constantly want to be doing the job search and almost feel guilty when I'm not doing the job search. I mean, I've got a family to support, and so they're at the top of mind, and I want to do everything I can to find a job. But sometimes you just got to step back, walk away, and take some time for yourself. And, personally, I lead about a 3,500 member meetup group devoted to outdoor activities here in Central Florida. And so I spend my time. That's kind of a escape valve for me, where I'll go, take a hike or a kayak. I did both a kayak run and a hike this past weekend to kind of escape from everything. So my advice to job seekers is I understand the pressure to look for a job and almost the pressure to use every conceivable moment of your day to look for a job. But I think that's really too much. You got to allow some time for yourself, and certainly allow time for your family, and it just step away sometimes from the job search.
Yeah, completely agree. It's okay and it's advisable to pause, for lack of a better term. And it doesn't mean you're giving up. It just means you're recalibrating. I'm working on writing a book on product marketing, for example, and sometimes instead of job hunting, I go switch that because it turns the brain off of the job hunt and allows you to refocus. So completely agree.
Yeah, and also, Ned, I think it's what you're saying is so important because when you're interviewing for a job, people, even if you're doing it through Zoom, I feel like energy is still palpable, right? And so if you're not giving yourself grace, if you're not spending time with your family, if you're not doing things outside of the job search, you can come across as super tightly wound, maybe
Yeah.
even aggressive or angry, because that's what this process makes you feel, right? So if there's nothing to counterbalance it, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you're going to show up to an interview and the interviewer is probably going to be like, wow, this person may
Yeah.
not be a great culture fit.
You're so right. You might be so strong that you don't come across as very good, well. And then, if you step away and just meet people too, that's helpful. I remember in this meetup group I lead, last year, I was chatting with somebody for the first time, and she had been laid off from Boeing. And she had a very niche job. It was a foundational job. And I started talking to her, and she started talking to me about all these AI tools and all the strategies she's doing. And I wasn't looking for a job at the time, but it really blew me away about what is possible and what's needed for a job search. So when I started actively looking, she's one of the first people I reached out to. So my point being is if you step away, there's still opportunities, even casually, to meet people to really, quote unquote, search for a job and be productive.
Exactly. Listen, Ned, that's our time, but it has been such a pleasure having you on the podcast today. Your voice and your experience and your honesty is so refreshing, and it really does matter. And I think it's going to resonate with people who are watching this episode.
Well, if I can make a difference in the lives of people, this is one of the reasons I enjoy healthcare so much. I've worked for a healthcare system as well, is because I really like helping people. And if these stories I've conveyed, if this message I conveyed is helpful to even one person, I've done my job. So thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. That's why we're doing this podcast. Honestly, is to help. And if you're listening and you're feeling to that lyric stuck in your moment, remember this time will pass. You've got value. There's an opportunity out there. Your next chapter and your next opportunity is coming soon.
And as always, we would love to hear your story too. So if you're in the job market and you're ready to be heard, come join us on the Higher Ground Project. Let's give you a platform and make your voice part of this movement.
And don't forget, Ned's story and his profile will be featured by Think Strategic Alliances, our great partner. We'll continue to champion all those fractional partner marketers across a variety of industries.
And it would be very helpful for us if you could subscribe, follow, share, like. Any sort of engagement or interaction is going to be super helpful for us. So let's keep showing up for each other, all right? Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care.